Courtroom bombshell, Scout's stunning testimony rocks Port Charles. The courtroom at Port Charles General Hospital has become the epicenter of one of the most explosive trials in recent memory. As Willow Tate stands accused of shooting Congressman Drew Cain, what seemed like an open-and-shut case has taken a jaw-dropping turn that no one, not the prosecution, not the defense, not even the spectators packed into the gallery, could have anticipated. The trial proceedings had been going disastrously for Willow from the start. Evidence mounted against her like an avalanche she couldn't escape. Edward Quartermain's gun, the weapon used in the shooting, was discovered in her bedroom at Elizabeth Weber's house. Security footage contradicted Nina Reeves' alibi that she had been with Willow during the time of the shooting. The prosecution painted a damning picture of a woman scorned, driven to violence by a toxic love triangle involving Drew and her ex-husband Michael Corinthos. Willow sat at the defense table, her face a mask of desperation as each piece of evidence chipped away at her freedom. Her children, Wiley and Amelia, had already witnessed the traumatic scene of their mother being handcuffed and arrested. Now, as the trial unfolded, it seemed inevitable that Willow would be convicted and separated from her children indefinitely. The courtroom atmosphere was suffocating with tension, until a small voice shattered the proceedings entirely. An unexpected witness. No one expected Scout Cain to take the stand. Drew's young daughter had been through unimaginable trauma in recent months, losing her mother Sam McCall on Halloween, being uprooted from the Quartermain mansion, and now witnessing her father's near-fatal shooting. The child had been staying with Willow at Elizabeth's house, caught in the crossfire of adult conflicts she couldn't possibly understand. When Scout rose from her seat in the courtroom gallery, a hush fell over the room. Her small frame seemed even tinier as she made her way to the witness stand, her eyes darting nervously around the crowded courtroom. Judge Rachel Berlin looked uncertain about allowing a child to testify, but Scout's insistence was impossible to ignore. "I saw who shot my daddy," Scout announced, her voice trembling but determined. The courtroom erupted. Spectators gasped. Attorneys jumped to their feet. Willow's hands flew to her mouth in shock. Drew, who had been watching the proceedings with barely contained rage, suddenly went pale. "Order! Order in the court!" Judge Berlin's gavel cracked against the bench repeatedly before the chaos subsided. With all eyes locked on her, Scout took a deep breath and delivered the bombshell that would change everything. "It wasn't Willow who shot my daddy. It was Nina." The courtroom explodes. The aftermath of Scout's testimony was nothing short of pandemonium. Nina Reeves, who had been sitting in the gallery, shot to her feet, her face contorted in shock and fury. "That's a lie!" Nina screamed, her voice cracking with desperation. "I didn't shoot Drew. This child is mistaken, she's been manipulated." Security officers moved quickly to restore order as the courtroom descended into bedlam. Willow collapsed back in her chair, tears streaming down her face, not tears of guilt, but of overwhelming relief mixed with confusion. Drew sat frozen, his expression unreadable as he processed what his own daughter had just revealed. Anna Devane and Dante Falconeri, the lead investigators on the case, exchanged urgent glances from their seats. This single piece of testimony had turned their entire investigation on its head. If Scout was telling the truth, they had arrested the wrong person, and the real shooter had been hiding in plain sight all along. Judge Berlin called for an immediate recess, but before the court could empty, she ordered Nina Reeves to remain in the courtroom. Within minutes, uniformed officers approached Nina with handcuffs, reading her Miranda rights as the color drained from her face. "I'm innocent," Nina protested vehemently as the cold metal clasped around her wrists. "Someone is setting me up. That child doesn't know what she's saying." Questions and conspiracies. As Nina was led away in handcuffs, the question on everyone's mind became impossible to ignore. Was Scout telling the truth, or had someone coached her to lie? The timing of Scout's testimony seemed almost too convenient. Willow had been facing almost certain conviction, with virtually every piece of evidence pointing directly at her guilt. Michael Corinthos had admitted to Brooke Lynn that he had orchestrated Willow's arrest, framing her for the shooting in front of their children. Could this be another layer of his elaborate revenge plot? Michael's dark transformation had shocked Port Charles. Once the golden boy of the Corinthos Quartermain family, he had become calculating and ruthless in his quest to destroy Willow and keep their children away from her. He had already demonstrated he was willing to plant evidence, manipulate alibis, and use his own children as pawns in his vendetta. Would he go so far as to coach Scout, his niece, to falsely accuse Nina? The possibility seemed chilling but not impossible. Scout had been through tremendous emotional trauma. She was vulnerable, confused, and desperate to make sense of the violence that had shattered her family. A skilled manipulator could potentially exploit that vulnerability, planting false memories or convincing the child she had seen something she hadn't. On the other hand, what if Scout was telling the truth? Nina's motive and opportunity. Nina Reeves had her own complicated history with Drew Cain. Their relationship had been fraught with tension, particularly regarding Willow. Nina had also been caught in a lie about her alibi. Security footage proved she had been at her apartment alone when she claimed to be with Willow, completely destroying her credibility. Moreover, Nina had access to the Quartermaine mansion, where Edward's gun was kept. She could have taken the weapon, committed the shooting, and then planted it in Willow's room to frame her own daughter for the crime. It would be a twisted form of protection, eliminating the threat Drew posed while simultaneously removing Willow from the complicated romantic equation that had been tearing the family apart. The prosecution would likely argue that Nina's maternal instincts had been perverted by desperation. Perhaps she believed that with both Drew and Willow out of the picture, her grandchildren would be safe and her relationship with them could finally flourish without interference. The truth behind Scout's eyes. The most critical question remained: did Scout actually witness the shooting, and if so, why had she remained silent until now? According to the timeline investigators had established, Scout had been staying at Elizabeth Weber's house on the night of the shooting. If she had genuinely seen Nina pull the trigger, why hadn't she come forward immediately? The answer might lie in the trauma response of a child who had already lost so much. Child psychologists would likely testify that Scout's delayed disclosure was consistent with traumatic stress. Children who witness violence often suppress the memory initially, only for it to resurface later when they feel safe enough to process what they saw. Watching Willow, someone Scout had come to trust and depend on, being hauled away in handcuffs might have triggered that sense of injustice, compelling Scout to finally speak the truth she had been too frightened to voice before. Alternatively, Scout's testimony could be the product of suggestion or confusion. Young children are highly susceptible to leading questions and can sometimes construct memories of events they didn't actually witness. If someone had repeatedly asked Scout if she saw who shot her father, if Nina had been around that night, or if she remembered seeing Nina with a gun, the child might have inadvertently created a false memory to please the adults questioning her. The investigation pivots. With Scout's explosive testimony, Anna Devane and Dante Falconeri had no choice but to reopen their investigation with a new focus. Nina would be held pending a full forensic analysis of the evidence. Investigators would need to examine whether Nina's fingerprints were on the murder weapon. They would review security footage from the night of the shooting to trace Nina's movements. They would interview witnesses to determine if anyone else had seen Nina near Drew's residence that evening. And most importantly, they would conduct a careful, trauma-informed interview with Scout to determine the reliability of her testimony. The defense team representing Willow would undoubtedly file for immediate dismissal of all charges against their client. With an eyewitness now pointing to a different suspect, the case against Willow had effectively collapsed. Meanwhile, Drew Cain found himself in an impossible position. His own daughter had just accused Nina, his former ally and the grandmother of his girlfriend's children, of attempting to murder him. Whether Scout was telling the truth or had been manipulated, Drew would have to navigate the emotional minefield of supporting his traumatized daughter while seeking justice for the attack that nearly ended his life. Port Charles divided. The revelation sent shockwaves through Port Charles, dividing the community into camps of believers and skeptics. Some residents firmly believed Scout's testimony. They pointed to Nina's proven dishonesty about her alibi and her complicated history of questionable decisions driven by maternal desperation. Others remained convinced that the child had been coached, manipulated, or confused, and that Willow remained the true culprit, or that an entirely different shooter had yet to be identified. Carly Corinthos found herself torn between her loyalty to her grandchildren and her desire to see justice served. Sonny Corinthos, ever the pragmatist, wanted the truth regardless of who it implicated. Tracy Quartermaine, who had found Drew bleeding on the floor, watched the proceedings with her characteristic sharp-eyed skepticism, wondering if yet another layer of deception remained to be uncovered. The road ahead. As Nina sat in a holding cell at the Port Charles Police Department, vehemently proclaiming her innocence, the legal machinery ground into motion. Her attorney, Martin Gray, would mount an aggressive defense, arguing that Scout's testimony was unreliable and that his client was being railroaded by a combination of circumstantial evidence and childhood confusion. Willow, meanwhile, faced the agonizing wait to see if the charges against her would be dropped or if prosecutors would pursue both women simultaneously until the evidence definitively pointed to one suspect. Her relationship with her children hung in the balance, as did her freedom and her future. And Scout, innocent, traumatized Scout, would be caught in the middle, her testimony scrutinized by forensic psychologists, defense attorneys, and prosecutors, all trying to determine if the words of a child could be trusted to convict or exonerate. Conclusion: Truth or manipulation? The question that haunts Port Charles remains maddeningly unresolved. Is Scout telling the truth, or is she an unwitting pawn in someone's elaborate scheme? If Scout genuinely witnessed Nina shooting Drew, then justice demands Nina face the consequences of her actions, regardless of her claims of innocence. But if the child has been manipulated, whether by Michael, by another family member, or by the trauma of her own experiences, then convicting Nina based on false testimony would compound one injustice with another. The courtroom drama that has captivated Port Charles is far from over. As investigators dig deeper, as attorneys prepare their cases, and as a traumatized child's words are weighed against the evidence, one thing remains certain: the truth, whatever it may be, will tear through the lives of everyone involved like the bullet that nearly killed Drew Kane. And in Port Charles, where secrets run deeper than the harbor and loyalty is as shifting as the tide, discovering that truth may prove to be the most dangerous challenge of all. Next, we will learn about the escalating drama surrounding Carly Spencer and her fierce quest to shield her daughter Jocelyn Jacks from the shadowy world of international espionage. In the latest twists from Port Charles, Carly's world shatters as she uncovers the extent of Jack Brennan's manipulations, pulling her into an unlikely partnership that could topple a high-stakes operative and redefine family loyalties forever. Carly Spencer's rage boils over like a storm on the horizon, fueled by the shocking revelation that Jack Brennan, the cunning WSB recruiter, has ensnared her beloved daughter Jocelyn into the agency's perilous ranks without a whisper of consent. For months, Brennan's web of deceit has spun silently, turning Jocelyn into an unwitting pawn in covert operations that teeter on the edge of global intrigue, leaving Carly feeling betrayed on every level, from a mother's protective instincts to the trust she once placed in those around her. This isn't just a family matter, it's a powder keg of espionage gone personal, where Carly vows to dismantle Brennan's empire piece by piece, starting with forging an alliance with the enigmatic Valentine Cassadine, whose own history with the WSB makes him the perfect co-conspirator in this high-wire act of revenge. Imagine the tension: Carly, the queen of bold moves, channeling her inner strategist to outmaneuver a spy who's evaded capture for decades, all while ensuring Jocelyn emerges unscathed from the clutches of danger that now define her secret life. The confrontation unfolds in a charged scene at Carly's doorstep, where Brennan arrives with his trademark smug assurance, fresh from his release at Steinmauer prison in the Swiss Alps, spinning tales of reuniting Lulu Spencer and young Charlotte Cassadine with Valentine under safer skies. Carly, ever the composed firebrand, masks her fury behind a veil of casual hospitality, her mind racing with the intel Jason Morgan discreetly shared about Jocelyn's covert enlistment. She dangles the bait masterfully, probing with subtle questions about Jocelyn's recent adventures and hinting at whispers of peril in the wind, practically begging Brennan to come clean about the daughter's double life as a WSB asset. Yet, in a display of arrogance that borders on folly for a seasoned agent, Brennan doubles down on the deception, his eyes flickering with false concern as he fabricates a narrative pinning any supposed threats on Jocelyn's whirlwind romance with the elusive S. Vaughn, insisting her heart is the only battlefield she's navigating. This bald-faced lie, layered atop months of omissions, ignites Carly's resolve like never before, transforming her from a grieving mother into a one-woman force of reckoning. As Brennan saunters away, oblivious to the storm he's unleashed, Carly wastes no time, her fingers flying across her phone to summon Damian Spinelli, the tech-savvy wizard whose digital prowess has unraveled countless Port Charles mysteries in the past. In a hushed conversation laced with urgency, Carly outlines her audacious plan. Spinelli must craft an airtight alias for her, complete with forged credentials that could fool even the most rigorous WSB background checks, think layered digital footprints, fabricated travel histories, and encrypted backstories that blend seamlessly into the underbelly of international shadows. This isn't mere disguise, it's Carly reinventing herself as a phantom operative, drawing on Spinelli's hacker genius to weave a persona that's equal parts ghost and guardian, ensuring she can infiltrate the circles Brennan frequents without raising alarms. Picture the late-night brainstorming sessions, Spinelli's screens glowing with code as he anticipates every vulnerability, turning Carly's raw determination into a technological shield against the agency's iron grip. The plot thickens dramatically in the dim corridors of Steinmauer prison, where official spoilers tease a jaw-dropping visitation that leaves Valentine Cassadine reeling from the shadows. Her arrival shocks Valentine, whose eyes widen in disbelief as she whispers urgently about Brennan's betrayal, the recruitment of Jocelyn into WSB ops that have already flirted with catastrophe, from high-speed chases through European backstreets to encrypted communiques that could unravel at any moment. This clandestine meeting isn't just a plea for aid, it's a strategic summit where Carly lays bare her grievances, detailing how Brennan's lies have eroded her trust and endangered Jocelyn's future, appealing to Valentine's own paternal instincts regarding Charlotte and his deep-seated grudge against WSB overreach. Together, they plot in hushed tones, brainstorming ways to expose Brennan's vulnerabilities, perhaps leveraging Valentine's insider knowledge of agency protocols or his network of shadowy contacts, to orchestrate a downfall that safeguards Jocelyn and restores some semblance of justice in their fractured worlds. Delving deeper into the perils Jocelyn has faced under Brennan's watch, one can't overlook the harrowing encounter with Cyrus Renault, the notorious crime lord whose vendettas have scarred Port Charles for years. Brennan's recruitment thrust Jocelyn into Renault's crosshairs during a botched operation in a rain-slicked warehouse on the city's outskirts, where gunfire echoed and alliances shattered in a split-second confrontation that nearly cost her life, leaving scars both visible and hidden. Even before that, during the initial pull into WSB training, Brennan exposed Jocelyn to simulated threats that blurred into real dangers, intense interrogations, evasion drills in hostile terrains, and moral dilemmas that tested her resolve far beyond what any young woman from Port Charles should endure. Carly, haunted by visions of her daughter's bravery masking underlying fear, sees these incidents not as badges of honor but as reckless gambles with Jocelyn's safety, fueling her crusade to yank her out of the agency's orbit before another mission spirals into tragedy. This maternal fury adds layers to Carly's character, showcasing her evolution from a businesswoman entangled in local dramas to a fierce protector willing to cross international lines for her child's well-being. Despite Carly's unyielding mission, whispers among fans suggest Jocelyn might harbor a secret thrill in her spy escapades, the adrenaline of decoding secrets and outsmarting foes providing an escape from the everyday turmoil of Port Charles' life, perhaps even a way to honor her late father's legacy of heroism. She's thrived in the shadows, mastering gadgets and guises that make her feel empowered, her quick wit and Jack's family resilience shining through in high-stakes briefings. Yet, Carly remains undeterred, her instincts as a mother overriding any hints of Jocelyn's independence. She envisions a future where her daughter pursues passions like music or college without the constant specter of danger. In true Carly fashion, she'll bulldoze through obstacles, be it Brennan's defenses or Jocelyn's protests, employing every tool at her disposal, from Spinelli's tech wizardry to Valentine's cunning, to orchestrate an extraction that prioritizes safety above all. This clash of wills promises fireworks, highlighting the timeless tension between parental love and a young adult's quest for autonomy in the ever-twisting tale of General Hospital. As Carly's alliance with Valentine takes shape, the stakes soar, with potential ripples affecting everyone from Jason's watchful eye to the broader WSB hierarchy, setting the stage for betrayals, chases, and revelations that could reshape Port Charles's power dynamics. Her determination isn't just personal, it's a testament to the unbreakable bond that defines the Spencer-Jacks lineage, ensuring that no matter how deep the deception runs, a mother's fight will always cut through the lies. Stay tuned for more explosive updates on the saga, where every shadow hides a secret and every alliance a surprise.